Welcome to KCN TV 4 Outreach Forum. But before we get deep into what we would like to discuss, I would like you to share with our audience, give us some background of your early days, school maybe, job-wise, if you can give us that background.
Well, I was born in Pickering village on the West Bank, and I attended Margaret II Roman Catholic School. After I went through all the classes, I did my junior Cambridge exam from that public school. I also was selected to go up for county scholarship in those days with Claude Messiah and Dorothy Smith. Regrettably, we all didn't succeed. But we did fairly well in the sense that had Claude Messiah got the marks I obtained in mathematics, he would have got a scholarship. Similarly, if I got the marks he had in English, I would have got a scholarship. But that wasn't to be, because after a certain age, you're out of the scholarship running. Then I proceeded to Georgetown, and I did my senior and maths matriculation exam. Whilst it was my desire to be in the commercial field, my father wanted me to become a lawyer. And I got articled to the firm of King's lawyers that comprise A.G. King and C.V. White. I then got married, had 2 children, and decided I would go to England and study to pass my solicitor's exam, which is far different from an attorney at law in Guyana.
What's the difference between the attorney at law and the solicitor?
Well, in those days, before they had attorney at law, it was the solicitor and the barrister at law. And I think that the solicitor exam was much harder. We had 6 papers. If you fail one, you had to go back from the beginning and do all 6 again. Whilst at the bar, you were referred in one subject if you didn't make it, and you take only that subject again. But money-wise, the solicitor was much better in the sense that barristers had to be instructed by solicitors, even in Guyana, over a certain sum of money. And then I returned. When I returned, I had another son, making it 3. And I got a break with my local principal, A.G. King. He had a big clientele, and he introduced me to some Portuguese people with a big job. They got through, and then they wanted me to carry on. So I said, I can't do that. I have to go back to Mr. King and tell him you all are his client. But that was my big break. He said, no, if they want you, you go ahead and do it. And as a consequence, I had the opportunity of doing it. And as I told you before, my love was commerce. And I got a break with one of the leading firms, and a bright businessman, Andrew James. He was like the head of the Chinese business people here. And because I knew a little bit about commerce, I endeared myself to him because he could have talked to somebody who could understand the relationship. And from that, I went on. And I told you not so long ago the history why I left Cherry Jagan.
Well, I would like you to tell the audience why you left, how you got involved in politics.
And when I returned, I was an admirer of Cherry because I thought at that time that he galvanized the people into action, right? And I thought, well, this was a place that I could help. And in my dealings with him, we formed a company called the New Guyana Company Limited. And in my receiving instructions from him about the shareholding of the company, he said he wanted it to be a mass company and the shares were to be sold for $1 each to the white population. But then he went on to say that, look, he wanted 100 shares of $25 each to be given to selected people who would form the policy of the company. So I asked him, but then how come all these hundreds of and thousands of people who putting in their money, they don't have a say? And you go about talking that, look, everybody must have a share and this is the policy you're bringing in? He said, well, that's my instructions. So I had to
follow the instructions.
Follow the instructions as a lawyer. I could have also given it up, but that never occurred to me. And, I started to lose faith. Then, in those days, there were several young enterprising business people. And they couldn't get into the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. So we were not aware at that time that they had something called a Junior Chamber of Commerce, which was a social organization. But we formed a Junior Chamber of Commerce of young entrepreneurial people. And there was a Portuguese fellow named Jardim. And he was very uptight, pro-Jaganite, pro-PPP. And the big merchants squeezed him, became bankrupt. And as a result of his bankruptcy, I became a nominated member of the Georgetown City Council, 1963-64. That is when I voted for Forbes Burnham against Lionel Loku for the mayorship of Georgetown. And that's how I get involved with Udo. It was a revelation to be associated with Burnham. The man had a tremendous vision. I mean, when he explained some of the things that he was doing, you marveled. Before his death, about 3-4 years, he was talking of moving the capital of Georgetown in hinterlands because of the flooding and different things that we had. He wanted us to house, feed, and clothe ourselves. So much so that we planted cotton at Kimbia. When he was invited by the Soviet Union to visit them, we went to a place called Tashkent, where the arrows were prolific. That is how the Sonata textile mills were established here. Plus, at Kimbia, we started to plant cotton. You may know that prior to sugarcane, cotton was a big thing in Guyana. Actually, the whole Essequibo coast, they had a lot of cotton plantations. So, Barnum was a man who I think was more socialist than Jagan. He had a vision of everybody being equal. The best wines you could give him, he would share with this gentleman who doesn't know anything about the quality of good wines. But more importantly, many of the things that Barnum started was heavily criticized by the PPP. In the news now is the NIS. When Barnum started the NIS, I can't tell you the details, but if you go back to the Hansard, you will see the criticism that was leveled against him. It took Barnum to nationalize sugar, and then is when for the first time you had critical support from the PPP. In addition to that, it was during Barnum's time that Gawu was recognized in the sugar industry, replacing what they term as company union that was headed by, I think, Richard Ishmael at that time. And you can go on and on talking about the man's vision. Guyana's loss was his untimely death. I don't know if there can ever be another Guyanese leader like Barnum.
Okay, well, we know about that. You are, if we check back the history of the speakers of the House, you are the longest serving speaker so far. I would like you to share with our audience, because you were there, what were some of the challenges, the setbacks, and even the difficult decisions you had to make during various sessions of Parliament?
Well, it's a curious thing how I became Speaker. Prior to that, I was the Deputy Chairman of the Public Service Commission as well as the Police Service Commission. And then H.B. Gadraj, who was the then Speaker at that time, I believe he was promoted or transferred to becoming an ambassador in the United States. So the position became vacant. And in the 4th of January 1971, I was nominated by the People's National Congress at that time to be the Speaker of the country. May I make it very clear, I am not a card holder, I've never been a member of the PNC, but I was friendly with Mr. Barnum. So I was then selected as the Speaker 4th of January 1971 and continued until October 1992, I think, something like that. Being elected, time after time, And that is how I got to be the Speaker of the country. But if you know Dr. Shady Jagan, he felt he was cheated out of the elections, and his behavior in Parliament was very difficult to control. Very difficult. I myself feel now, on hindsight, that I was too lenient and not firm enough with the PPP. And then you started to have defections from the PPP. Chandi Singh, Vincent Tika, quite a number of others. And one of the most amusing thing that came out on my part in the Parliament was a member crossed the floor, and Jagan sent his brother Derek with a letter to show that he resigned. So I called the individual. I said, I have a letter here that you resigned from Parliament. He said, no, I've never resigned. I said, will you please come and look at this letter and your signature? When he came, he denied it. I called Commissioner Fraser, then Henry Fraser, who was Commissioner of Police. I said, look, these are the circumstances. Could you investigate this matter? Because you're playing with a man's integrity and his position as a member of Parliament. It take, some time, but Henry Fraser told me that the handwriting expert did not think that the signature represented that individual. So he remained a member until the dissolution of Parliament. Mm-hmm. But then I had some very exciting times. They had a member of Parliament from the PPP side named Bashir. When the flower was banned, he brought bread. I know where he get the flour from, but he put it on the Prime Minister's table. At that time was P.A. Reid, Dr. Ptolemy Reid. And it created a lot of laughter. But the one that was the most troubling, my view of the Speaker of Parliament is like a chairman. He doesn't take part in the debate. He ensures that both sides, anybody who is speaking, should be relevant on the topic. And Dr. Jagan was a man who wanted to talk whatever he wanted to speak, whenever he wanted to speak. Well, you can put up with something for a long while. You draw his attention because he was the leader of the opposition. You gave him greater latitude than the other members. And one afternoon, he was talking, and I interrupted him quite a number of times because he was way off. Then he threw down the book, went and grabbed the speaker's mace, put it on. So Bashir, the same fellow, he take a glass and threw it at me. So I said, Dr. Jagan, if you don't apologize, I would have difficulty in hearing you, or words to that effect. He never apologized, and he never spoke. Because there's a rule which says you can only speak when the speaker calls upon you to do that. He sent, his emissaries to say he will come into my chamber, the speaker's chamber, and apologize. I said he didn't throw down the mace there. He threw it down in the parliament. He got it. And he never spoke for the balance of that session. You had other people. And, time went on. The parliament was not as large as it is now. And of course the PVP, they were always not behaving in the dignity and decorum that you would expect from a member of parliament. Most of them. But the greatest of them all, in my view, was Ralph Ramkaran's father, Baji Ramkaran. He would get up, tell you what he wanted to tell you, and when you are about to censure him, quickly he would say, I apologize, I withdraw my remark. I mean, what can you do? You got to laugh to see that he is smarter than me. Then they had an incident of Peter Degar. There was an MP by the name of Maki Hamid. And when Peter Degar was walking in, this was not in my time, when Peter Degar was walking in, he crowed like a fowl cock. Do you remember the good book, the holy book, the Bible, that Jesus said, you will hear the crowing of a cock 3 times before I will be betrayed? Well, that was Maki Hamid crowing like a fowl cock. And then you had, Gadraj had his own problems. He went further than me in censuring the PPP, although they were in the government, and the behavior was terrible. And this is a significant point I wanted to mention. Remember I told you I was one of the PVP lawyers. We had an outstanding lawyer, Crane, Jeff Haynes, and then at that time you had Fenton Ramsahai. Yeah. And we went ex-party before Laku, J.A. Laku. Made the case. Of course, we had the assistance of Fenton Ramsahai, David Singh, Jeff Haynes and myself appearing for and we went to Laku, and the next morning he said, look, this is a matter dealing with the parliament. I don't have a jurisdiction there, and that is what has been happening regularly. The parliament is a separate entity. I even told them when they had the case going on, I said, go and look for it. Jagan. But I suppose Chang may feel differently. But Vincent will tell you that there's straight the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary. Of course, we only got in this 2011 elections only 2. You're probably reading recently what happened with some magistrates. The judiciary, the quality is so poor. I can afford to say it because I'm not retired. But coming down from they say, if the head is rotten, the whole fish is rotten. That's what you got. With maybe 2 exceptions, The judiciary is very poor. The quality is very poor. It doesn't encourage you. But that's what we have in these times.
Okay, you had 28 years of looking at the People's National Congress in government, and as an elder statesman also you had 22 plus years of looking at the PPPC in government. You have seen both their weaknesses and their strength of both sides for this number of years. As a person who have had that long look at both sides, what can you offer, especially to our young people now looking at the PNC and the PPP in government and administration? How do you look at both sides?
You know, the ideal is very difficult to achieve or to attain. But whatever one may think of the PNC, I think they were never corrupt as this administration. The ministers of the PNC in those days, when you look at them, they were people of quality. You don't get that now. If I had to address a group of youth, I would tell them, come out and let your voices be heard. You are the future. You have to make it work the way you want it to do. You know, there is this saying about Apanjat, which the PPP denies that they never brought it into play. It was a solicitor named D.P. Debidin, that he was the one who started Apanjat. But if you look at the results all down the time, you would find that there was mostly Indians would vote for PPP, Africans would vote for PNC. There is a group called the youth arm of the WPA. One of the girls spoke on behalf of the WPA today at the place. I called them. They were very critical of the PNC, very critical. And I had this to say to them: stay in the party and fight. Do not go outside and keep noise. That can't change it. Go inside and fight to get your views to be heard. And I was so happy today when I saw one of them read the WPA message, a young woman. I would tell the youth, forget race. Look for the people who you feel can enhance your future. Because if your future is not enhanced, what is happening today? The police killing a lot of young black people, young black boys. Why? In my view, is they don't got a job. They need bread. They need to look after their old parents. They got a girlfriend or maybe a child or children. If you don't have a job, what can you do? Yes, the victor always has the spoils. But it must not be so biased in favor of one group as against another group. Many of my friends before used to say, but you're an Indian, how you speaking like this? I said, if what I'm speaking is untrue, I will stand corrected. But if I speak what is correct, then why should I change? You know, I was head of an Indian institution in this country called the Mahasabha for donkey years. People are not aware that when Mr. Burnham went to India in 1971, he spoke to me and he said, Sase, I'm seeing Indira, what should I ask her for? I told him, ask for an Indian cultural center. Within 2 years, that cultural center was established in Guyana. People are not aware of it. And the Indians are the one who have gained the most. The only African fellow that got something out of it was you know, I mean, people, it would take a long time to tell you about Burnham. Every time you talk, something else reminds you of him. And I'm not saying this, I mean, I never got anything from him. Yes, the speaker was offered, but that was his decision that to nominate me. I was not a PNC member. I knew that I was a PPP. Actually, that was the only card I had. The first card was signed by Mr. Jagan. When we robbed Burnham, the chairmanship at the African Convention Center in Charlotte Street, I never knew nothing about politics, but a card was pushed in my hand. I go and vote. And the first time Burnham see me, and he called me, he said, let me see the card. When I show him, he shake his head. First venture into politics was a thief. You know, I mean, look what happened with Balram Singh Rai. He defeated Ben. Chedi didn't want that. He wanted a black face. Then he aborted that election and went on. But I mean, they're two different people, you know.
When you say two different people?
Well, one had class and the other one is grass. Oh, I can take out the Jita.
That's your opinion?
Yeah, sure, that's my opinion. I ain't got nothing to frighten.
Well, because I know that you have had long years walking and talking and having interaction with both men. So
yes. Well, as a matter of fact, many of Jagan's family are personal friends of mine. Derek was in my chambers for over 30 years without paying me a cent. But equally, I never asked him. They had this one was a dentist, Sir Paul Jagan. He left, he went to the States. When his brother was ill, they denied him access to go and see him, you know. And Janet was there.
Why they denied him the access?
That's family story, I don't know.
Okay.
And even if I knew, I wouldn't say it.
Okay, as we wrap up, I call it Comrade Narain. What are your overall views as we move forward now with the situation now in Guyana? And we are closer to an election which will be about a couple months from now.
2.5.
2.5 months from now. Give us your perception, maybe your opinion, maybe how you would view going forward as a nation here in Guyana.
I think the coming together of the AFC and the APNU is a good thing. is the first genuine attempt over the years to have the races coming together. You know, and if they should win the government, I think it would be a great thing for Guyana. Guyana would have won. Because, you know, this discrimination that's going on is not good for the country, it's not good for the young people. It's not good for me.
Why it's not good for you?
Why it's not good for me?
Yeah.
Well, Guyana is my home. I want to see progress. I want to see unity. I want to see equal distribution of the patrimony of this country.
But some people will say that you were at the M for 71 years. What have you done to help forge that unity that you're looking forward to?
Well, when I was at the head of the Mahasabha, right, there was a great attempt, and part of it was successful, of the Indians enjoying the benefits of the country. Unfortunately, when the time of voting comes, was a different story. But they had, I mean, Burnham encouraged the Mahasabha people to form a Indian national band. Wherever we went, we got benefits from the government. I don't see ACTA getting that kind of benefit. They get a pittance when they got something at the tarmac there, which is far from, you know, many Indian cultural people from India, artists have come laterally to some African from Jamaica. They don't pay tax. They can't afford to pay tax, but they come. They enhances the beauty, you know, of the Indians, but they don't carry them in the country. It's only in Georgetown. They come, they collect the money, and they're gone. What do we get? I mean, there's a lot of talk about development. Answer McCall, what development does it bring? It's a trading arm. They bring in goods and they carry away your money. To me, that's not development. You got several Trinidad firms coming here. That's not development. The Chinese, they come and carry away with timber and our lumber. That's not development.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Narain. We trust that your wishes for the election would come true, and I guess you will have a brighter smile on your face.
Well, I have a vote and I know where it will go.
Okay. Thank you again for affording us this opportunity.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity of saying some things that I have never said before.